to, and so we'll discuss today immigration options and updates for Ukrainians in the U.S. It's changing daily, so it's a moving target. So you just really have to find out what the current status is. But there will be some questions from people who have already registered and have questions, so Ruby can address those questions. And then we may have time for additional questions. We did have Ruby speak to the ICC group earlier this year, so there was a request for continued time to pick her brain on issues with paperwork, and it's all so complicated. So Ruby Powers has been in practice for over 16 years, a licensed immigration attorney, and she's also a dedicated Rotarian. So here's her bio. You can scan this. She has her own law firm, and she's a very active attorney, and she's always seems like interviewing on radio and TV and in high demand. We're so pleased to have her with us today. So Ruby, if you could begin, we would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robin, for helping organize this. And, this is being, what's today? I'm going to date this because things change. August 13, 2025. And so this is what's going on right now. And I'm a board certified immigration attorney. It's federal law in the US. So I can practice immigration law in all of the world on US immigration matters. We have clients all over in other states and other countries. And so my firm Powers Law Group can assist through everything from asylum to TPS to immigration court, family-based consular processing, employment, investment, complex citizenship cases. So sort of a rare thing to find someone or a firm that does full service. Even I just be concerned. I want this to be an educational resource. Whomever, if you do reach out for attorney help, know that sometimes firms do multiple areas of law. So just be concerned, worry of that if there's too many areas and they don't stay on top of just immigration, because there's been so many changes since January of this year, 2025. But the other thing to note is that immigration is a patchwork of different policies, regulations, and case law, and works with different agencies like the Department of Labor, Homeland Security, Justice, and Department of State. And so it can be complicated to navigate all of that. Like Robin mentioned, I have my own firm. I've been a long time Rotary Youth Exchange student, Rotary Ambassador Scholar, RILA, Rotex, helped start a Rotary Club, been a Rotarian for a while. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get started. So under our current U.S. U.S. administration, it has been part of the policy to be, trying to say it diplomatically, very sort of, I don't know if anti-immigrant, it sounds a bit strong, but it's sort of like a lot of the policies that we've had in the last administration, opening up U4U, TPS for a lot of different countries that didn't have it before, different parole options, prosecutorial discretion. A lot of that is now being phased out, abruptly ended, and things are changing. The climate has changed. And sometimes it might not target one nationality. It'll target maybe another one, like we saw with the Venezuelans earlier this year, but it sometimes can be a precursor or a premonition of what will come later down the road. So really the gist of it is that a lot of those temporary programs are being phased out, or we're not sure when their last days will be. And so the gist of this presentation is mostly like, if you are in the United States, what are your considerations to transition out? And if you're not in the United States, just letting you know what the climate is here, and that things are changing rapidly. So if you talk to an immigration attorney in November last year, it's probably a really different story than what you would hear today in August 2025. So I want to walk through a lot of alternatives to TPS and U4U for those who are in the country, and just walk through just in general different avenues of immigration in the United States. But I'll give some more specific guidance and talk specifically to Ukrainians in the United States. So if you are, I'll have a slide about TPS and U4U, but in the event that TPS is truly ending in 2026 and U4U is on pause, so most people who had U4U had switched over to a TPS. But if you know that there's an expiration date on those, then you really should be, and you want to remain in the United States, you should be thinking about other potential alternatives. And the ones to think about are like family-based, if you have a U.S. citizen spouse, or depending on your relationship, what the visa wait time will be, employment-based, asylum, special programs like a U visa, T visa, Violence Against Women Act, and then immigration court if you happen to be in court, which we don't want that for anyone, but there's different options within an immigration court that you could apply for. But no matter what, like the other theme that I want to share for today is having an experienced legal counsel by your side, supporting you. I think a lot of the Ukrainians in the United States did the U4U, like after they figured it out, they did a lot of it on their own. A lot of them maybe did the TPS on their own. Maybe they teamed up with a nonprofit. They were doing renewals. So I think there was sort of this essence of pro se, and they were fine. But we're not in that era anymore. Right now, we are in an era where pro se can be dangerous because of all the changes. And so I just wanted to say that's another theme I would have. And I've seen that with other groups and nationalities that I've worked with, that after the word spread how it worked, then they shared it, and then a lot of them did it on their own. But this is not a very safe time to do pro se work. So the two areas that were predominantly used by Ukrainians in the United States were the temporary protected status and the Uniting for Ukraine. Uniting for Ukraine, which most people watching already know most of this like the back of their hand, but just I'll go over it a little bit and then talk about other alternatives. The U4U was, I think, a great experiment by the government to find a very swift way for people to get to the United States by leveraging their online system. And by very rarely did they have to communicate or wait for an officer. And I was actually quite impressed by how they unveiled that and rolled it out. And it got people here pretty quickly. And I thought that was a really good precursor for potentially how they could do it for other countries. Around the same time, the Afghans were leaving Afghanistan, but they really weren't as tech savvy and didn't have as many contacts in the United States. I think it was a different sentiment. It was just a different type of situation. But anyway, U4U was a great opportunity to get here quickly. And then the temporary protected status was rolled out at different times. So the temporary protected status allows you to be here for 18 months at a time and get that work authorization. You can also apply for a travel permission, but by nature of the title, it is temporary. But it has played mind games on us because there's been some national countries, like I think it's like Honduras, it's had it for like 20 plus years. And so you're like, how is that temporary? But anyway, that also is going to be ending soon. So anyway, the U4U was up to 2 years. I mean, honestly, when all of this was happening, nobody really knew how long this was going to last and what was going to happen. So, so for TPS, right now, most of the people who are already here in the U.S., Ukrainians, who are already in the U.S. as of August 16, 2023, may qualify, and they had to have had that continuous residence since 2023. Most of the people who are eligible for this have already applied for this. And the most recent up-to-date notice is that the TPS has been extended through October 19, 2026. And the re-registration was earlier this year. And the EAD was auto-extended through April 19th, 2026 for there are certain dates of expiration. So knowing this, what we've learned from the other TPSs is that there has to be a phase out period. So this could be the very end. There could be litigation to try to extend it a little bit longer, but really looking to see what happens with the TPSs being phased out or trying to be attempted to be ended this year will sort of give us a better feel for what next year is. I think if you have TPS and you think, oh, October 2026, that's more than a year from now, that's great. I don't think that's the best way to look at it. I would probably saying what should my backup plan be? Can I go to another country, or what are the other alternatives? And I'm not trying to be negative at all. I'm just trying to be realistic, because I think a lot of these programs are going to be ended. Now, you would also say, well, there's still a conflict, there's still an issue going on. And that's what TPS was given for. It was given for like floods, civil unrest, wars, mudslides, just a whole bunch of havoc and things that were disruption on the country, from all the countries this has been for, like Venezuela, Haiti, South Sudan, El Salvador, Honduras, Nepal, earthquake, etc. But when you look to see some of the countries that they've been ending TPS or trying to end TPS for, you go to the State Department website, and all the ones they're trying to end all pretty much have level 4 risk assessment saying don't go back because there's all these things going on, and it's not safe. So the justification for some of the ending of TPSs for other countries just really hasn't made sense with reality of what's really happening, like for example, Afghanistan. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there, because that really hasn't really been the most. You would think like, oh yeah, if everything's back to normal and safe to go back, then okay, I could get why you would get rid of the TPS, but they're ending it for other countries that it is not the case. So I think most people know, if they have TPS, how to re-register. I don't think I need to go too much into that process, but this is one thing that was important about the dates, like the work authorizations that had expiration dates of October 19, 2023 or April 19, 2025 are valid through April 19, 2026. And for the employers, you would want to show the TPS related EAD, the work authorization, and the Federal Register notice. Sometimes employers are confused by this because the card in front of their face doesn't show what you're saying to them. And I regularly have to work on how to explain these types of things. Anyway, so just briefly, I think most of everyone knows what the U4U was, and it was a really fast program they put together to bring people over, and most of them transitioned over to TPS. But for the most part, as of January of this year, 2025, they paused the program, and as of July, they have not created a formal renewal process. So I think this is an example of like those might have come on to U4U, maybe transitioned to TPS. U4U is pretty much being phased out, and then the TPS has an ending date for next year. There's also sort of like a sentiment that we've noticed with administration about like just phasing stuff out. And that's sort of what we're starting to see as a new normal. There was a parole program for Nicaraguans, Cubans, I forgot it was Chibney, Cubans, Nicaraguans, I remember, okay, a few countries, and that program has ended as well. But it was a parole program to help eliminate, to increase family unity and to eliminate illegal entries. And so I sort of look at U4U and that program is sort of similarly, because it was a temporary program. And some of the folks were able to transition over to TPS, but we're also seeing another issue when people are trying to do adjustment of status. I'll get to it pretty soon. So anyway, I think you knew about the sponsorship and the security vetting, what the process was. And I mean, so just in general, what we know, which a majority of the Ukrainians, I believe, in the United States who've entered recently or in the last few years are probably on the TPS program, and we see this end date coming. And so we don't know what will come. if you were to ask me, I would say the government would the US government would probably try to just say that's the end date and that's the end date. That's what I think is what they're going to do. So you should try to think of what your alternative is going to be to that. And like right now, is it like Trump is having a meeting with Putin or something in Alaska or something like that? So I don't know what's going to come. I don't know what, nobody knows the future. Maybe some people do, but anyway, like this is very like late breaking live dynamic conversation right now. Um, and so anyway, let's go to options. Um, so this would be current options, I would say, from August 2025. So we could try to explore family-based options, employment-based, asylum, and humanitarian, other potential options. And so we'll just walk through what those would look like. So family-based could be, if you are married to a US citizen, that makes you an immediate relative. And so if you had one of those paroles entries, what we normally would tell you to do is to do an adjustment of status inside the country. You don't, you know, it's you don't want to travel. Where would you travel to? Very likely the consular processing could be difficult. We know that Ukrainians can go to certain countries, and we know we've had to route them through different places. But I'm just going to mention that what we've seen just recently is that for some of the cases we filed a U4U parole entry, married a US citizen, we filed the green card application. The case was put on hold because the USCIS, when we got to the interview, because the officer said they're waiting for guidance on what to do in those situations. And this is becoming common where a policy has not been clearly indicated to the public, and therefore because it hasn't been indicated, we cannot make better strategy decisions. And sometimes there's like these leaks in the news about this is going to happen, this is going to be on pause, they're reviewing this for fraud, and it sort of plays mind games because you don't know which one's real and which one's just they're just throwing that out there. So right for what I've heard most very recently is that the U4U adjustment could be on pause right now. I don't know when that's going to clarify, but that is from a case I specifically have, where we went to the interview and they put it on hold. Now, the very likely, whatever they do say, if they say you can't do it, then there's going to be litigation, and then it'll continue and continue. So that's sort of where our new normal right now. Processing times vary. So like if you have an American brother or sisters petitioning for you, that can take a long time. It doesn't mean you get to stay here while the time is pending. So really your best chances are with an immediate relative, which means like you have maybe a 21-year-old American child and you entered legally and they petition for you. But I don't know how many Ukrainians necessarily have that fact pattern, because most of the ones that I've worked with only came here in the last few years. I know there's been some that came here in prior years, but the ones that are mostly immediate in need of legal options are more of the most recent arrivals, the last 3 years. So anyway, family-based might not be the best option unless you're pretty much married to a US citizen. If you're married to a legal permanent resident, know that the visa wait time could be a year or two. You're looking at the F2A category on the visa bulletin, and you also need to, when you file the adjustment of status, you need to be in status at the time of the filing. That can get a little complex, but just basically I wanted to mention that there's family options, like spouse of U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident, the U.S. citizen legal permanent resident parent, which could take a while, and it doesn't mean you're staying here in the country while you're waiting. You could wait in another country potentially, or same thing with U.S. citizen sibling. And like I was mentioning, like, so if you can obtain the green card inside the country, we're talking about adjustment of status. When you do it outside of the country, that's called consular processing. Okay, so I knew that this was going to come up. Adoption. Okay, adoption, there's the family side Hague, non-Hague, and things have to be done depending on if you're Hague or non-Hague by certain years. Usually, for Hague, it's you have to have lived with the family 2 years before the age of 16. There's some other requirements. You can do, let me go back a second. You can do family law adoption, depending on the state. That's state law, whatever what you floats your boat with that type of thing. But if your goal is to get an immigration benefit from the adoption, you have to follow certain restrictions. And there's another layer of guidance and rules, which, like I was mentioning, was the Hague. For example, you'd have to have lived, the child would have to have lived 2 years with the family before the age of 16. And a lot of times people just think, oh, if I get the adoption done before they turn 18, in the family state court, I'm good. No, 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 no. You might be good just for the family side. And I've talked to Ukrainians who have that situation where they were adopted. But if your goal is to get an immigration benefit to be sponsored by that American family, then you have to follow these specific rules. And so I've seen it done wrong. And I'm usually the one trying to clean messes up in immigration court. So I usually don't do the immigration meets adoption, and I refer that to an attorney in Pennsylvania, because I just don't want to be the reason why somebody gets this messed up. And it's so time sensitive and specific. So even though I do everything in immigration, that's one thing I don't do. But I can show you, if you just look up USCIS and adoption, you can see a lot of information there about those type of restrictions. Okay, so let's move over to employment-based options. Now, this can be this has been challenging because when you entered, most of the Ukrainians who entered, they came in on U4U, so they had a quasi status, if you will, and they weren't accruing unlawful presence. And then they might have switched over to TPS. Well, depending on, are they on U4U, are they on TPS, and did they have an advanced parole entry, or how they entered, and I'm not going to give like a blanket rule, but it can get very complex. Sometimes the perm process, which is where your company sponsors you, which you don't have to be inside the country during that 2 or so year wait. It can be longer, actually. You could be outside the country. You might be able to do the change of status inside, or you would just wait until it's current and then consular process through another country. There's also potential for extraordinary or H-1B, and those types of things. So now I think Ukrainians don't have a problem getting a passport like my Venezuelans do, but that does, all of these different things come into play when we're logistically trying to move people around and if they need to do consular processing. Now, employment-based, the best way to approach this is to have a consultation with experienced immigration attorney, have your resume or whatever your intention is. Is it for your company to sponsor you and to see what the wait time is, etc. I actually have a perm case where the individual is on the U4U, and we're watching that closely to see if that individual has to go to another country after the U4U expires, because we need to make sure that they don't have any unlawful presence and they don't work illegally, because those things can, in the employment-based space, those are like kryptonite. Unlawful presence and working illegally and no status. Those are like the three. And unlawful presence and no status are not the exact same things. That gets a little complex as well. So let's move over to asylum. Now, I think a lot of people hear about it in the news, but it is very hard to get. Basically, you need to prove that you have suffered past persecution or fear of future persecution on account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, which is sort of like, I sort of look at it as like clay. You can sort of mold that, but it's based off of a whole bunch of case law. So it might be like journalists who write against the controlling power or administration, or, family members who are whatever, family members of politicians who are blah, 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 something. So women who can't flee like domestic violence, even if they're like not married to their spouses. So this one just ebbs and flows with a different case law. And then political opinion. A lot of times in Spanish, they call it asilo político, and they make it sound like it all has to be political opinion, but it doesn't. There's these 5 prongs. The concept is that these are 5 protected grounds according to like human rights, asylum law around the world, and that people should have the freedom to believe and be who they are. They also talk about how these are immutable characteristics where you can't change these things. Now, anyway, these are the basic prongs to this. Now, what I will tell you is that immigration, the whole US is divided by different circuits. And in Texas, where I'm at, in Louisiana, we have Fifth Circuit. Our circuit is very, very strict on immigrants. But in the Ninth Circuit, the California area, it's very friendly for immigrants. I love it when I have cases out there. I just had a Washington court case recently, and it was wonderful. In immigration court, we got the case won in like 45 minutes. Like, it was beautiful. But so depending on the circuit, you have different case law, especially about particular social group. So anyway, I don't want to go too complex into that, but that's really where, like, even though I say it's federal, yeah, it is federal, but the different cases can come into play. And whenever there's a inconsistency, like a Ninth Circuit case says this, but the Fifth Circuit says that, then that's when people usually try to take it to the next level and eventually see if the Supreme Court will hash it out. But anyway, those people who entered May 11, 2023 to sometime in May of this year, if you could even get into the country illegally or some sort this year, had an additional hurdle of the circumventing lawful pathways. And what does that mean? It means that you had to prove that you had to apply an asylum in another country and prove that you couldn't live there for some circumstances. So by virtue of that, a lot of the cases I have of recent arrivals the last 2 years, they've been having a harder time proving their asylum claims because of that. But if an individual came with the CBP-1 app, which no longer exists, but that was used, I mean, the app process was used up until Trump's second administration in January of this year, then you were exempt from that. But anyway, let me just say it's complicated. You need to have a good attorney who understands it. And I have applied for asylum for Ukrainians before. And some cases, like one I can think of, she later got married to a US citizen. So we're doing the adjustment and then we're going to withdraw the asylum. So immigration court is where you can, if you receive a notice to appear, that puts you in immigration court jurisdiction. Receive, or if it's been filed properly and you receive it, that gets technical. But for the most part, once you're in immigration court, the rules sort of change. And depending on how you're being, under what provision that they're putting you in immigration court, that gives you different rights and possibilities. Usually, a lot of the clients I have in the court are applying for asylum, just by virtue of the situation. If an individual's been here more than 10 years, which I think most of the Ukrainian population that we're talking to has not been here the 10 years, then they might, and they have a U.S. citizen spouse or parent that would suffer extreme hardship, unusual hardship, they could potentially apply for the 42B. There's also, you could adjust status if you're in immigration court, but there's a 2-part process. You also could try to go apply for the T or U visa. There might be some other options there, but I'm just saying, like, you are allowed to apply for different forms of relief while you're in immigration court. So the one key point is that if you are in immigration court, I'm going to share a screen real quick to show you something that I think is important to know about. If you are in immigration court, you need to take it very seriously, because if you don't attend a hearing that you're supposed to attend, then you can be deported in what they call in absentia. Okay, so I'm going to share this screen real fast and then I'm going to go back to mine. So this is while I'm sharing, can't easily do a lot of copies and pastes on the chat, but I'm going to put this in here. Okay, there we go. If you put your A number here, let's see, I'm just gonna make up some number. I don't know, hopefully it's nobody's, but then okay, so this person, whoever is this A number, is not in the system, which very likely means they weren't either ever put in court or wasn't filed properly. But if you ever are put in immigration court, this is where you could go to see who is your judge, when's the next hearing, is it a master hearing, is it in person, is it a WebEx, is it in person, and things like that. So that is just a little tool I wanted to mention for you as well. Immigration court, there's a judge, there's opposing counsel trying to find holes in your case, there's your attorney if you have one, which you really should have one, and then there's you. I sort of look at it like a lot of things can go different ways, because you've got your circuit law, you've got the circumstances in life, you've got your fact pattern, you have the trial attorney, you have the judge, you have your attorney, and you have you and how you are on the stand. And the case law can change minute to minute. Like I have cases sometimes. I've had a case in court in some shape or form since 2012. And at this point, I'm waiting for their kid to become an American so they can petition for them so I can get them completely out of court. But anyway, what I'm saying is, like, the strategy I gave them back in 2012, well, I never could imagine all the things that were going to happen between now and then. But for the most part, the judges do, and the court is trying to get the cases through within about a year or two. So there are just some. We have about 4 million people in immigration court, and we have about 700 judges around the country. And the administration fired or let go about 50 of those judges in the last 8 months. So we've got a bit of an issue here. But what is another concern, a lot of the Ukrainians that we were talking about have been here about 3 years or maybe 2 years. But one of the other things that's of concern is called expedited removal. And what does that mean? If the government has you in court and dismisses it and thinks that you've been here less than 2 years, actually their interpretation is quite vague. Actually, their interpretation is very, very broad. They're trying to say that some people are expeditiously removed, possibly to be expeditiously removed because they haven't been here for enough time and they don't have the right to see a judge. So this is another concern that we're having with people who've been here more recently or in some of these temporary statuses. If you're in a TPS status, you should be fine, but especially up until when it's supposed to be expired. But I would say my message is don't wait for that. Explore these other options because these other options can take time. Okay, so I think that we know that the employment authorization is valid while the TPS is in effect, and also we already mentioned that if you had the auto extension. And if you very likely have a TPS, you know that when you're supposed to re-register and you don't want to lose those benefits. The other thing to note, like I brought up recently, was that if when your status expires, like it ends, the U for you, the TPS, whatever it is that you have, then you could be you're very likely accruing unlawful presence. And if you have more, unless you have something else pending that qualifies, pausing the accrual of unlawful presence. And if you have more than, if you have more than 6 months, but less than a year of unlawful presence and you leave, you could have a 3-year bar. If you have more than a year of unlawful presence and you leave, you have a 10-year bar. And if you've come in illegally, you've accumulated some time, like about 6 months or over a year, and you leave and then you try to come back in illegally, you could have a permanent bar. And a permanent bar means you need to stay out for 10 years, and then you can maybe try to come back in with a lot of permission. So that's why the unlawful presence is really toxic, or I don't know what's a good way to explain it, but it can be dangerous because if you ever want to try to do employment based, you have to have almost like no unlawful presence or less than 180 days. So anyway, this is why you want to be thinking, okay, if my TPS were to be ending in October 2026, what if that if we were able to go that long, I hope so, then what are my plans to transition to something else? Or could I go to another country? And how long, and I, you know, this is very weird for me to say. I never really say this, but like, it's really only when Trump is the president do I ever have to say these things. But you might want to look at other countries, and you might want to start laying the groundwork for looking at those other countries now so that you have enough time. Because if there's a lot of demand, like if, you know, hundreds of thousands of people are losing their TPSs all at the same time, it's sort of like when there's layoffs. If everybody's there's layoffs and there's only so many jobs, like there's going to be a lot of demand. It's going to be harder to transition. So, there, I would normally say there's a lot of, well, Rotary is a great, you know, organization, and there are immigrant advocacy groups, but at the same time, there's been a lot of cut in funding. And so honestly, a lot of the nonprofits and the groups I normally work with, I don't even know at what capacity they're working right now. Like with my Catholic Charities, Tahare, in Houston, we have the Houston Immigration Legal Services Collaborative, Justice for our neighbors. There's Justice for all immigrants. I think what they changed their name, JFI. There's lots of different nonprofits out there, but there's been a lot of cuts because some of them were very dependent on the government for funds. So maybe churches and other community-based groups that are not as government grant based or still have funds. I will also tell you that the immigration attorneys out there are very overwhelmed right now with a lot of work because of all this unexpected and abrupt ending of programs. Like a lot of January was like whiplash of hundreds of executive order changes. February was a lot of talking to Venezuelans who thought they were about to lose their TPS. And we were having these exact same conversations, like, should they apply for asylum? Are they, you know, should they just go ahead and get married to their boyfriend, their girlfriend, that they were, you know, already in a relationship, but, you know, what have you. Or maybe they're eligible for something else. Maybe they were a victim of a crime for the U visa and they never knew what a U visa was. A victim of a crime, of a qualifying crime, like aggravated assault, for example, or aggravated burglary or a robbery or something like that. Those types of things can make you eligible for a U visa. Unfortunately, those U visas are taking about 15 years, but you can get a work authorization within a couple of years. And it doesn't make you immune from immigration court, but you can try to fight and try to stay. And one day, when the visa becomes current, you could come back if you can't stay during that whole time. And that can include spouse and children. But there's also T visa if you were trafficked for labor, sexual premises. They have about a 2-year, year and a half, 2-year wait. And so there's other options out there, but those are very sort of not as mainstream. And so, but that's why having a consultation where an attorney just like really deep dives into your life and gets asked a lot of questions. And it could be that maybe someone in your family is about to get a green card or citizenship, and then that's going to create like this domino effect that'll help you maybe in a few years, but maybe not for the immediate future. And that's also what I explore too. Now, I just want to say this, unfortunately, there are some scams out there. There's this concept called notario or notary. Like in the US, we have notaries that are they're state authorized, verified documents, and it's a part of our legal system. It's usually like $70 to become one. You have to answer certain questions. But in some countries in the world, a notary is a higher level than an attorney, like for example, in like Spain and like Mexico. And so they sort of prey upon that misunderstanding, and the notario. But not probably the same issue with the Ukrainian community, but there could be like they're an attorney in another country and they rely heavily on the concept that they were attorney in another country. So maybe they speak your language and they're like, oh, I can help you. It's just filling out forms. It's not. There's so much more to this than just quote unquote filling out forms. And like I started at the very beginning, being pro se or having someone who's not authorized to practice the law is so much more dangerous than ever before. And I am the American Immigration Lawyers Association, Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, it's a mouthful, secretary. And just last week, we had a meeting with my fellow executive committee, and we said, we've got to do something because so we're creating a committee to help for unauthorized practice of law, which state bars do have usually unauthorized practice of law committees, but also for immigration fraud based off of sometimes attorneys. There's some bad ones out there, unfortunately, and we really hate that because it can give the rest of us a bad name, but who might be promising things that are not possible. So one of the biggest things I would suggest is to research the immigration attorney, look at the reviews. Don't just take it because a friend said, oh, this is a good person. Do a couple consultations, check the state bar where they're licensed, and be like I mentioned, it's federal. So I'm licensed in Texas, so you can go to the state bar and you can check out the website and say, Ruby Lichty Powers, how's she doing? You know, but like if like I have a case where my former client got suspended in another state, and I went to that bar website and I found it, but you know, you have to do some digging sometimes. So anyway, I don't want to add more to this whole thing, but I just really want you to know that you've got to, if something looks too good to be true, probably is, and be cognizant of who you're talking to, where you're sending money to, where you're sending your documents to, because we do have a very remote world. And I mean, I'm grateful for that. That allows us to have more flexibility. But at the same time, I think people have been preying on that misunderstanding and or the language accessibility. So if you do have something filed, or even you probably have your own USCIS.gov account, you can check there. There's also the websites and checking out the news. I think it's important to have some good news sources for reliable, but not giving you like sensationalism type of stuff, because I don't know. Sometimes it feels like there's just all of a sudden there's these different crazy things going on out there, and they're trying to hype up and scare people. So let me share a screen real quick of a couple of good sources. So here is the American Immigration Lawyers Association, which I'm a part of, and like I said, I'm the chapter secretary, which I have to send out the newsletter to about 1,900 attorneys. But so we get every day. We get this, and I go here when I make videos. I do TikTok and other social media videos and lives, and this gives me like a good overview of what's going on in immigration that day. They don't work on Saturdays and Sundays, unfortunately, but every day there's one here. So I can put that in the link as well. And then I also wanted to mention that I have a YouTube law firm page that we have a ton of videos, and every week Maria, who helped organize today my firm, we do an English and Spanish webinar. And if there were a need, like with Ukrainian or any other language, any other group, Rotary, if you have an idea, we can team up for other languages. But we have content here, and I think you could probably, with subtitles and translations, you could do things. But we have shorts and lives and videos. But anyway, this is a really great resource, and I'll definitely put this in here in the chat as well. But I just wanted to share those. But you want to make sure that you're getting reliable sources, and if something sounds a little off, it could be normal right now. Things are crazy a bit, but it could be a bit off. So I think if you have a couple of resources, I also would suggest try not to fill your life with I know there's so much going on, and there's so much hurt and so much uncertainty, but it's important to try to have be weary of your mental health, because that affects your physical health. But it's also I tell this also to parents, because they don't understand how they're passing on that stress and worry to their children, and their children are picking up on all of those things. And so I have clients very concerned from all different countries here in the United States, and I'm trying to add that as like just another little moment, a mindful moment. I would suggest that if you're been here less than 2 years, be aware that if you are in a place where plainclothes ICE officers are trying to pick up people because there's a 3,000 day quota, to, if you've been here more than 2 years, really try to have proof of that, or you have something pending. One of my clients, ICE went to his house at a birthday party. I don't know whose birthday party, but they were about to take him away. And he said, no, I have a green card pending. And actually, he'd been here for a really long time, but he just used to have a withholding case. And so he was able to advocate for himself, and he showed the documents, and they let him go. But see, that's the other thing I'm telling people is you need to be able to advocate for yourself, because in that moment's notice, we might not be able to be here. An attorney might not be able to respond to you right away because we're really busy and things happen before 8:30 a.m. and after 5 p.m. and on weekends. And that's really when ICE is active, is usually in the mornings, when they're at places where people are coming out of their homes, or where there's a large group of people. They even were picking people up at immigration court, unfortunately. So anyway, sort of hard to
Could
not.
we take a moment to address some of the questions in the
Yeah.
chat?
Yes. I think I went through all the slides. These is pretty much some resources and explore options, and this is my information. Okay, sounds good. So
Yes,
let's
one of
go
the
to
questions is, are you accepting new clients now, and how do people connect with you?
yes, we are, and I think my assistant, I'll resend the what she put in at 12:08 in the chat of our information. But yes, we are. We're always I will say that if there's something super rush, like due in less than 2 weeks, we'll have to assess to see if we can handle it, just due to our bandwidth.
Okay, and another one, based on your experience, are the perm applications for those entered on the U4U being processed by the USCIS?
Um, so like you can do a perm process, whether it's through consular processing or adjustment of status. But I think the same issue that I mentioned about the marriage-based adjustment, entered on a U4U, has a U.S. citizen spouse being on hold because of their internal memo of like how they're going to proceed. I think that is the same thing at play. So we usually tell people you should keep in your mind that it's possible, very likely you might have to consular process. And where would we process you through? Where would we send the I-140 or the I-130? So I haven't gotten all the way to the USCIS adjustment stage for my U4U perm case yet, but I would say it's probably under hold if you were to have to file adjustment of status, just like I mentioned that other case I meant.
Mhm. Okay, are there any other questions? Please unmute if you have a question.
So Ruby, I understood that, yes, you are taking new clients and that your assistant will send information to us that we can get to people about that. Is that correct?
I put it in the chat, but if you want me to, we can send a like an email to Robin or the people who registered today, and put the latest PowerPoint and like our contact information.
I think that would be very helpful for
Yeah.
everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This has been very informative, and we are so grateful for the specificity of your presentation today. And
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I was trying to make sure it wasn't too, I don't know, technical, but I know that sometimes that's what you want because you can Google a lot of stuff, but then it says talk to an immigration attorney. So
Yeah, there's a lot of information to digest, and some programs phasing out, then you've got to stay flexible and maybe shift your status and your application. I've learned a lot today,
okay.
but not ever having had to go through this process, always being an American citizen. So yeah, it's with the changing rules and the backlog in court, the removal process and ICE, just there's a lot of things that it's just it's overwhelming at times.
you
So
know, Katerina has a really specific question. I know that, you know, she comes to us from one of our partners in Ukraine through the ICC. Maybe we could, it's in chat. I don't know if you have
Yeah,
time to
I
take a
think
peek
I'm
at it.
reading it that she applied for after the U4U expired, she applied for TPS. Um and really the TPS it's very date specific, like when were you here? Did you meet the continuous presence?
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just driving. I will tell you like little story. I came here, I left Ukraine before the war and I was in Dubai. Then my sponsor applied for the U4U and they brought me here in July 2022. And after that, we didn't know what to do. There was no news about the referral. We applied for TPS and they approved TPS for 1 year and then we applied for the referral, and right now I'm in a referral, and we applied in 2024, February 6th for the TPS, second TPS, and I'm waiting for my approval.
Okay. I don't have all of the dates memorized, so I'd have to like look at what you just said in terms of, but I think the gist of what you're saying is that, so TPS can take a long time. In fact, usually on people's first TPSs, it almost sometimes it gets approved right before it's about to expire. So I think is your question basically like you applied to renew the TPS even though you just got the first TPS or the first TPS hadn't been approved yet?
No, the first they approved and it's already expired, and we applied for the second one.
Before, when you were allowed to, you applied for the re-registration for the TPS when you were allowed to, according to the dates, like by the dates of re-registration?
A good question. I don't know if I did when it's allowed. I know that my first one is expired, and I applied for the second one. But I've been waiting for many months already, and it's in my UC account. It shows me that my progress is like 4 months for DPS, and for the work authorization is like 6 months.
Okay, can you check the what I just put in the link and check your dates there? And then see if it looks like you did it properly. Otherwise, I'd say it would just be good to have a consultation, but check the dates if you re-registered in the appropriate time. Because that
Oh, yes, I did. I did in February 2025, February 6, 2025, the registration period for DPS.
And you've been in the US since August 16, 2023?
I was 2022.
And okay. Well, if you got the first TPS and you filed to re-register in that January 17, 2025 to March 18, 2025 window, then you should be fine. It just takes a while.
Yeah, I did exactly what you said. Just
Okay.
it's been like since February. Maybe it's like slow because of the whole situation with U4U house and the new president and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so you did it right. I'm just saying, I guess what I'm saying is you should consider what your potential options are if TPS truly ends next year. But feel free to have a consult if you have any other follow-up questions. Does anybody else have a question? We only have a few
Yes.
minutes left. Yeah, go ahead,
So
Barb.
much.
Thank you, Ruby. The question we have with this young man, he's been here since 2022, and he was 16 and now he's 19, a university student. He just told me that he is getting ready to do his TPS application, and I said, you know, that may be redundant now. It may not work, and he may need to go to perm, but I would ask you that question.
Well, it's pretty formulaic, like this link. If you're doing your re-registration, it was for January to March of this year. So did he didn't re-register on time?
That I don't know because I wasn't working with any dates when I consulted.
Okay. Yeah, this is super date specific for
Right.
the TPS. So usually when I want to talk to someone, I need to talk to them directly, not a third party. And I need
Yeah.
to have, and I even love to see the receipts, honestly,
Yeah.
because it's a lot of times they may have filed it, then it got rejected, and then they don't know when it actually got filed or receipted. Sometimes they can give me access to their or screen, show me their screen on their USCIS website, the .gov, whatever.
Sure.
But that's the gist with the perm is that if they can find a company that wants to go through that process and sponsor them, we just need to make sure that they don't have more than 100 days of unlawful presence and didn't work illegally. But then at the
So he does have a company where he is working as an intern and in California, although his residence under his U was Iowa, but he's in California now with a company doing a legal internship. So I will just get us to you.
Okay.
I think that's
Okay.
what's needed.
Yeah, and it's
I have
really
another
important.
question about the work permit too. So if the work permit has expired and the application for renewal is in process, if the individual continues to work, is that working illegally?
If you are under that specific thing that I mentioned, where the EAD auto renewal, let me show that slide one more time. Then you're fine, but you want to make sure that you really are. So, they had an automatic extension of those cards that had expiration dates. And usually when you're the receipt that you get with the I-765 work authorization, it usually can say those types of things on it sometimes too, where you can actually, it probably won't in this particular situation, but on certain times, if you have an auto extension of a EAD, it might say that on the work authorization receipt. But if you are under these qualifications, then you are fine in this specific scenario.
Hey, Ruby, my son's girlfriend has had trouble like showing her receipt, and she's gotten a lot of pushback saying, well, it's not current, it's not current. And right now she's working at a place where they'll keep her until next month, but she doesn't know because I think the wait time is like another 6 months for her paperwork to go through.
Well, this is a common thing. I'm dealing with it with another case where we won asylum last week and they don't understand that you don't need a work authorization to prove that you have work authorization. Things don't always make sense. So the slide mentioned about showing the federal register and also that there's that automatic extension. If she hasn't done that, I would try to do that. If the other potential thing would be to try to have an attorney write a letter explaining that that's still valid.
Yep.
But I get you. Like it's frustrating. It doesn't make sense. Sometimes the card says it's good for a long time, but maybe the underlying premise of it, like asylum, maybe they've been denied and it's not good anymore, but nobody knows. Or maybe it's been extended, like in this scenario, but the employers are just like so cautious, like rightfully so, I get it. And they're like, well, if it doesn't look like it, they're not trained to read it. And that's the other problem in general we're having where, where they're trying to get all different type of law enforcement and just random people to be no immigration, because this can be very complex with all the changes. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate your time today. And to add to all the fun, my son's girlfriend for her I-131 had an RFE, and we're not entirely sure what to send because it says that she needs to provide evidence demonstrating urgent humanitarian reasons or a significant public benefit or something along those lines. Do you have recommendations on how we do that? Because I'm not familiar with any of this, and she's only 20 years old.
Oh, yeah. They're probably wanting to just know that there's still a continued need for her to remain and that there's still humanitarian. I would put some country conditions and a letter and try to put some of that information in. I'm sure if this is happening, if this is a new normal, it's probably on some of the Ukrainian chat forums or something like that. But like if I were hired to work on that, I'm on a lot of other attorney groups and to see what they're seeing, because sometimes even though I've been practicing like, I don't know, 17 years, I'm seeing a lot of things for the first time, and it's requiring us to really lean into our network to see how we can help each other. So that's my first impression on that.
A
But thank
question
you.
from Yulia, please. Thank you, Chrissy.
Thank you, guys.
Yulia, sorry, Hina, do you have? Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this session. It's really useful for us. Thank you for your support for Ukrainians. And I have not like typical question, because we are Ukrainians who came. I have family of 6 for children, and we came here in April 2023. So we we are like in this window, you know, when everything was paused, and we don't have reparole, and I don't know if we'll have, and also we applied for second TPS and also are waiting for it. But the case is, we have daughter. She finished her high school. She has very good like GPA, 3 and 4, 3.4. But because we have only notice, not status here, the university couldn't apply for her scholarship, because she was she was resident for 2 years of Georgia. Yes, and but she can't use her scholarship here because she has only notice, not status approved. So maybe you know how to help in this way, because we were obliged to pay for her education, and of course we wanted her to study in campus, but we decided that she will study online because it's not so expensive. So maybe you know how to influence in this way, how to help us, like for our children to study here. Thank you so much.
Well, I wish I did. Like even in Texas, they were getting rid of the dreamers after 24 years, the ability for a non-status student to get in-state tuition that otherwise qualified. And I think that the state governments that are in line with the administration were just saying that's fine, and then the ones that didn't like that were fighting with litigation. I used to work at University of Texas in Austin International Student Office, and I used to do some work in education, and I mean I'm an adjunct professor, but I'm really far removed from how to get these scholarships and in-state tuition. I don't really know the process and if it is even possible. When I have some of my asylum clients, they tell me these things, and because every situation is a little bit different, like from private to nonprofit, I mean to public or whatever. But sometimes when my asylum clients tell me they need to brush up a case for their asylum and get the final result to get an interview, because they need to not be in that limbo space of asylum pending, or maybe in this case like TPS pending, and they want to have like an actual green card. But I wish I could give you a better answer. A lot of the schools have an international student office, and there are some immigration attorneys who have a deep focus on F1 and student, but this is sort of like not exactly that space because she has another type of status. So I mean, if you want to follow up with me, I could try to do some digging, but I don't really know the answer for you right now.
Okay, thank you. Maybe you know how to influence, maybe governor, maybe who to, yeah.
Which
who
state are
we-
you living in?
in Georgia.
Oh, in Georgia. Okay, I know that some of those immigration courts are pretty tough over there. I'm not sure how Georgia is right now, but
Thank you so much. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Best of luck with that, Yulia.
Thank you
Get
so
your
much.
daughter in education without
Thank you.
paying so much.
Appreciate it.
It's tough. Other countries have free education, the college level, but not our country. We pay a lot. Okay, I think we're running out of time. We've gone over a little bit. Thank you so much, Ruby, for your time today, your expertise. It's been very informative, and we hope that everyone did have their questions answered today. If you had your questions sent in ahead of time. If not, you know how now to get in touch with Ruby directly at her Ruby Powers Law Firm. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending.
Thank
This
you
is
so much.
recorded. We will share it with others that were not able to attend today.
Thank you, super lawyer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks a
Thank you.
lot, Ruby.